Hey YouTube, so today I'm going to be talking about my Durian Spikeys and sharing with you my enclosure that I have since I've been pretty successful at keeping these. And I feel like it's generally pretty easy once you get the setup. So you can see it's very natural. If we look at the Durians, you can see sorry, let me try to zoom in. So you can see there's one hanging off some lichen, there's some there on the wood bark. And then if we, go over here, you can see there's a guy crawling on the enclosure, but he'll probably drop down. But you can see there's some on the wood bark and then some more hanging from the moss. So I find that they generally like this sort of rotting wood or the moss to hang off of. So this natural habitat is, nice for them because they do, I don't really see very many spending time on the ground. There is one right now that's on the ground eating at the substrate, but that's generally pretty rare. They're usually up at out and about, hanging out on the wood and on the moss. You can see some moss that's growing there. So with a natural setup like this, you want to have it be, you want to water it. I would say at least like daily, once a day, maybe every other day. But I wouldn't do every other day too often. So I do have a mister system set up, though generally currently I'm not using it. But you can kind of see there's my setup over there. So misting system there, that has the reservoir and that feeds up and mists some of my enclosures. And then there's also lighting, because lighting is also key to helping things grow. So, this being a natural sort of setup, you need grow lights. Like this grew a lot. This was a lot smaller, but you can see it's pretty big now. This started really small. And then once again, that moss in this area, that's all grown as well. So, you kind of want this to be a self-sustaining system. So you want it to be growing, to constantly have sort of organisms, microorganisms for the Durians to eat away at. I do, in some of my other enclosures, you'll see that the leaves have been eaten away at, even in these sort of natural setups. But the Durians don't really seem to eat away at the leaves. There aren't too many that have been eaten away at. There's a little bit of cuddle bone for them to have their calcium. Oh, there's a little guy enjoying it right now. So, yeah, you want them to have some sort of source of calcium. So that's their source of calcium. And I haven't really put any Isopod food or anything in here because I just let them eat away. Once again, they really like this rotting wood, and they really like the moss. They hang off the moss and lichen. So, there is some lichen sticks in there, and I do have some lichen that I threw in there as well, like that little piece. Yeah, so this is my enclosure. This is a 12 by 12 glass, 12 by 12 by 12 glass, not aquarium, but habitat that I got off Amazon. And I did modify the top so I have access to a laser cutter. So I designed this and then laser cut it. But this is, originally I just had a piece of acrylic that was cut out that sat on top, but wasn't really like a good space for it to fit, because you can kind of see how this is curved. So it wasn't sitting on there very flat, and it would warp up. So by having this sort of sunken in, this top sunken in and sitting in to the top or system, it prevents the acrylic from really warping. You can see a little bit of the warp of the acrylic. This one isn't as bad because, once again, I created this system for it to set in, because obviously with the I had to design some sort of way for this to stay, but there's a sliding mechanism, and obviously it's not going to slide out because there's that big misting system hanging out. So I created this sort of using the system for the top to set into, so that way I can take it on and off like that rather than sliding it through. So it lets me have this misting system. I'm sure that there's a bunch of different, things you could try to do to solve that issue. Maybe you have this. Originally, I had this on top so that the misters were at the top level, so it could come in and out. But then there wasn't very much room up above between my shelf and the lighting, so I had to sink this down. And then it also lets me adjust. These a lot better to hit the precise points that I want within the enclosure based off how I set it up with moss sticks and stuff. But yeah, anyway, that's my enclosure for the Durians. There's a top view. I never really see any underneath the cork bark. I think because they're mainly hanging out on the wood and in the moss, that they're not really underneath the cork bark, because why be there when you can be on actual wood that's rotting away, eating away at that. So yeah, let me know what you think of my enclosure. But this is the setup for Durian Spikeys. It's different than other Spikeys I have. This is very similar to the Ardentilias, whatever they are now. The Ember Bees, those kind of isopods. This is very similar to my setup for those, very natural. And let's see, other things. Yeah, once again, you want it to be humid. You can see the moisture buildup here. So you want this to be humid. There are, the dry zones. If they want dry zones, they can go underneath here. They can go in the leaf area. There are some somewhat dry zones, but I feel like generally they like it pretty humid and wet. Not like sopping wet, but you need to keep the moss growing and alive, so that needs to be watered at least daily, I would say. Sometimes every other day. It's been fine, but so this is what my enclosure looks like when it's in its home, if you will. I did forget to mention that I do have fans, small little fans that are set up all together, and they run periodically throughout the day, and that's just to help bring in some airflow. It's very minimal, like the fans going very minimally for like 10 to 15 minutes, probably like 10 to 12 times throughout the entire day, so like night/day, just to once again bring in some fresh airflow, because these vents technically are flat and there's not much air flowing in that direction, so it just helps bring some air in. But yeah, that's what it looks like. There's the lighting up above. I'll link the lights, I'll link the fans, I'll link the mister and the nozzles, because I've found that some of these are better than others at articulating. And I guess I'll also link this tank in case you want to use it. But if you do use this in the same kind of way I'm doing it, you're going to have to mod it somehow. Or create your own top, right, for it. But there is some footage of Durians being little Spikeys roaming about their enclosure. I hope you enjoy.